It's March 5th, 2021, and today I'm going to talk about the federal minimum wage laws. There's a lot of articles coming out right now about the debate they're having. They've basically abandoned the fight for the minimum wage to focus on, at least for now, if they are not just abandoning it totally, focus on the $1,400 checks. Oh yeah, I'm sure they're working real hard on that. So the Democrats are blocking a $15 minimum wage, not Republicans, not the Senate parliamentarians. So this all relates to something I've been saying since like a month ago. It's not just the Democrats or the conservative Democrats or Joe Biden who talks about the Constitution all the time. It's not just them who are stopping things like a $15 minimum wage, UBI, National Jobs Guarantee, stuff like that from going through. It's the Constitution. There could be constitutional arguments for those things, but no one's really making them except people like me and like people in the Libertarian Socialist Caucus of the Libertarian Party, some people in the Green Party maybe, me. So no one's really taking a constitutional approach except the people in charge, and that's why they're in charge. And the Democrats, or the progressives, they are not in charge of the Democratic Party. They're not in charge of the coalition that won with Biden because they refuse to admit how constitutionalist Biden is, their president is, the leader of their party is, and they're afraid to admit that they need to use and understand a constitutional approach to get through the laws that they want to get through. And here's, I've been talking about why a $15 minimum wage or any kind of minimum wage law is ineffective for a long time. One is because, you can get out of it if you're a tipped worker, because there's this thing called the sub-minimum wage that's $2.13. People wonder why, Kansas, I think the Kansas minimum wage is like the same thing or something. People wonder why that is, or maybe it was till recently. And it's like, yeah, because they don't have to pay you any fucking more than that. There's all these exemptions that people don't talk about. First, I want to point out just one thing. Minimum wage increases do cause increases in unemployment. It's just it's a little bit delayed. The bigger increase in the wage, the faster the unemployment rate increases, as you can see by this graph. Yeah, I got this from the guy at Nickelback. So, yeah, I'm not going to go through all these articles. They were talking about on the rising, and Sagar made the point that they're just lying. The government's just lying about they don't really want to put the minimum wage through, and it's like, why won't they tell us why? It's because they can't affect the wages of all these people that you think are going to be saved in where is the one that says 140? What is it? Sorry. One of these articles is supposed to say that 40 million people will be, okay. So this is what they say. And their study, there's like a map somewhere, where is it? There. Yeah. So, look. So, probably a lot of farm workers right here that they just assume will be affected by that. It's only if they raise the sub-minimum wage. Bernie Sanders proposed doing that in 2019. They are talking about it again, thankfully, because if we don't increase that, then, tipped workers aren't going to be helped by any federal minimum wage laws. And also, it's why do we have federal minimum wage laws? It's really to control the wages of federal workers and people who are covered under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Now, here's a document related to the Fair Labor Standards Act explaining who's exempt from the federal minimum wage laws. Executive, administrative, and professional employees, including teachers and academic administrative personnel in elementary and secondary schools. So elementary and secondary school teachers don't have to be paid the minimum wage. And it also says professional employees, executive employees, administrative employees. So what does that mean? Secretaries, manager, anyone? That's a very broad category. And there's some other document there it is, saying, yeah, it's generally narrowly defined under the FLSA. But yeah, this sounds pretty broad. and it says, detailed information, get more detailed information. So every fucking government document is just like, look at this other government document that proves all the bullshit we're trying to say. It's like the Bible just says, look at this other Bible verse to prove that the Bible is true. Just bullshit. The Department of Labor didn't exist when this country was founded. I don't know if I said that, by the way. Employees of certain seasonal amusement or recreational establishments. So if you work at a bar or amusement parks, what's a recreational establishment? Potentially anything, any place you go to relax, bar, restaurant. So you don't have to be paid. Like say you're not tipped. What if you work at a recreational establishment? If at a certain recreational establishment. So again, you have to know the law really well and find that government document that it doesn't mention. It just says, look at, I've never even heard of the WHD before. Jesus Christ. Get it? How much you have to know about the government just to be able to find, whether you're eligible for the fucking minimum wage or not. Seamen engaged employed in foreign vessels, employees engaged in fishing operations, employees engaged in newspaper delivery, employees of small newspapers, aren't subject to the minimum wage. Small-time farm workers, not subject to the minimum wage. Or overtime pay. These are all not subject to either one. And casual babysitters and persons employed as companions to the elderly or infirm. Say you're working for Jeffrey Epstein. You're a companion to the elderly. All right, I'm going to have to go into that because I'll get banned from YouTube again. So I don't know if raising the minimum wage, like doubling it over 4 years, I think that's going to cause huge unemployment rates because it's like, you got to remember a certain class of people who are not going to be affected by the federal minimum wage. Their wages won't go up as a result of federal minimum wage increases. A group of people who I didn't mention yet, people without jobs, which is like 20-30% of the population, because people don't know that there's 7 different ways to measure unemployment. U1, U2, U3, on to U7. U7 is not really officially defined, but U7 is the most broadly defined set of unemployed people. It includes underemployed people, seasonally, temporary workers, stuff like that. It includes everyone who has difficulty maintaining a steady job. And that number is huge. And we don't talk about that because the government just wants to talk about the more pleasant statistics like U3. Because they've narrowly defined it, just like they've narrowly defined, but also broadly defined, who is eligible for the federal minimum wage increases. They tell us that 40 million people are going to get help because of this. It was Bernie Sanders and Bobby Scott. They were the ones that said raise the sub-minimum wage in 2019. But the thing is, the federal government, and I think through the Fair Labor Standards Act, defines who's eligible for federal minimum wage increases as any and every employee that uses anything federal, including the phone lines and the roads. I'm sorry I can't find a page that says that, but I think I had a professor tell me that recently or something. The federal government wants you to be eligible because, if you use federal utilities, public utilities, then you can discriminate. If you're receiving money from the public, then you can't discriminate against that same public. And, having to comply with the regulations as a result of being subject to these, regulations, you accept government help with the phone lines and the roads, and then you have to be subject to all the other federal regulations. And that's how they get you. But then at the same time, it's that would be a fair deal if the government did not interfere with our ability to communicate privately without using their telephone system, like with the internet, attaching letters to birds' feet, like in fucking Game of Thrones. Or, reality, several hundred years ago. Not everything has to be a reference to fiction there. Hamlet. Sorry. So it's a bunch of bullshit. They're lying. They're trying to make you think that you're eligible for federal help when you aren't, when it's just a trap. And they don't want you to collect your own energy. They don't want you to collect rainwater, which comes from nature. The government didn't create that. Now, if you pollute your neighbor's fucking water, that's a different issue. If you fuck up the environment, that's a different issue. But, you know, government shouldn't be able to stop you from doing things that you have the natural right to do. And that includes work, that includes strike, and that includes boycott. But the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947 limits our right to strike and boycott, which is why we're experiencing such big unemployment problems. We aren't able to leverage our consumer power or our worker power against the immense corporate and government power, which work together against the consumers and workers, which each of the workers are a consumer. Just admitting that is not idealization of conspicuous consumption. And yeah, conspicuous consumption is a problem, but only because it causes waste. And we're not taxing the right things. We're just, like, the Democrats' solution is just, tax production. It's like, keep taxing sales and income. Keep taxing all these things that don't hurt anyone, and you're just taxing away the earnings that we made and the productivity. There's no point to it. You're depleting the productivity and the productivity supply of the nation and depleting the tax resources, because it's like no one wants to contribute to a government whose only function is to take our fucking property and our earnings away. So we're asking for these problems. I hate to, it's hard to choose between blaming the victim and fucking I don't know what. We're causing these problems. We're putting these problems on ourselves. We're not making it easy for people to work without being subject to the minimum wage. It should just be like, okay, if you don't think the minimum wage is good, if you don't think it's going to help you, if you don't value what it's bringing to you, what it could bring to you, maybe increase your wages. Say you don't give a shit about that. It's like, what's your argument? Yeah, you don't want the value of the money to get out of control. If we have, I don't want to say if we have too many people working, the value of the money will get out of control. But, if you want more people working, you have to give them a choice. You can be a permanent worker or a temporary worker. And right now, we have overtime laws that, frankly, probably apply to too many people. Maybe overtime pay shouldn't even fucking exist because it makes people take hours that they are just tempted into, and then, because they really need the money. And you're not productive when you're tired. So overtime laws aren't necessarily a good idea. If this minimum wage increase doesn't go through, it's not that bad, Money, if the basic income doesn't go through, like, don't cry, because money and credit and all this bullshit and your fucking over-regulated, overtaxed, over-professionalized jobs where the only goal is to become, old and have power and make your fucking employees do it wrong or do something illegal or work wrong or work inefficiently or work slowly to milk the hours out of the fucking wage system. How about we talk about abolish the wage system? Is there really a guarantee that just because you work an hour, you deserve a certain amount of dollars, which are, backed by blood money and backed by the promises of a government who's so corrupt we can't trust them anymore? It's like, you look at a dollar and it says, this is valid for all debts, public and private. And it's like, it's valid on government say so, backed by the full faith and trust of government, of the U.S. Treasury Department. Who has full faith and trust in the Department of the Treasury? That's what you're backing your money on. They fucking run drug rings and child trafficking operations and nuclear material trafficking operations with fucking Jeffrey Epstein, who probably pays his fucking elderly companions below minimum wage. They will find any excuse to not pay you minimum wage. And if you stop thinking that the government's going to help you, you're going to be a lot better off. And that's what Malcolm X told us, and that's why they fucking shot him. And that's why my YouTube channel is going to get taken off again. See you later.